The ACC will fight tooth and nail to stop its teams like Florida State and Clemson from leaving for the Big Ten. I'll explain what the latest is right here on Locked On Big Ten.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Big Ten. I'm Craig Sheeman, coming up on 40 years as a sports talk show host and play-by-play announcer. And I want to thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. On today's podcast, we're going to talk about the ACC versus the Big Ten. It might be getting a little ugly behind the scenes. Of course, that relates to expansion and realignment. Plus, we're going to get into recruiting. Penn State may have its quarterback of the future, and Rutgers continues to kill it. Plus, we'll have our Big Ten Classics coming up this weekend. But first, I want to start talking about Florida State and Clemson. Okay, they are knee-deep in lawsuits and counter lawsuits versus the ACC. They're trying to get out of their horrible media rights deal and get out of the ACC altogether so they can leave for a more lucrative conference, say like the Big Ten. Now, they may or may not win their respective lawsuits, but our position is at some point there will be some sort of settlement. Some monies will have to be paid, and those schools and other schools, in addition to maybe Florida State and Clemson, will eventually leave the ACC for greener pastures like the Big Ten. But the ACC is not going to make it easy for them. In fact, it's digging its heels in right now as we speak. ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips spoke in Charlotte this week at the Associated Press Sports Editors Summer Conference. And he ripped his two-member schools, Florida State and Clemson, for engaging in damaging lawsuits. And he went further and said that he personally will fight the two institutions in court tooth and nail. He said that these lawsuits are damaging to the league. He added that it's harmful to the league. He said, look, this is a beautiful league we have here with the ACC. It's been around for a long time. He said the ACC has meant a lot to this part of the country that they're from and college sports as a whole. He's not wrong about that. But in my opinion, time's up. Time's up for the ACC. They have fallen behind the times financially, and they're not going to dig out of this hole. But back to Phillips. He went on to say, we're going to fight. He said the courts will ultimately decide, but he went on to say that we believe everybody knows what was in the media rights deal when it was signed back in the day, and it was celebrated at the time as a great long-term security providing deal for everybody. Everybody was all in. Now, a lot of that is true, and that's where things are going to get a little bit tricky for these teams that want to jump to the Big Ten or just jump out of the ACC right now. The word on the street is the ACC media deal is pretty airtight. That's why we're embroiled in these lawsuits right now. All the ACC schools did sign off on it, and all of the ACC schools have lawyers of their own who looked it over at the time and signed off on it. And it seemed like a decent deal at the time, but due to the length of it, the long length of it, over a decade, 13 years at the time, it quickly became a bad deal that failed to live up to the changing market. But it was already written. Nobody in the ACC had the foresight to see what was coming down the road. Nobody had the foresight to see just how big the media deals were going to get for the Big Ten and the SEC and how they would completely change the media market. But granted, the Big Ten and the SEC have a far superior product, in my opinion, and probably yours too. They have a lot more marketable teams. They're just a lot more marketable altogether. The ACC has like 4 teams that are maybe marketable. It's like in real estate. You never want to own the most expensive home in your neighborhood. All the other houses will lower your value. They will drag your value down. Florida State and Clemson are the most expensive houses in the neighborhood. And they just let SMU, Cal, and Stanford into the neighborhood. It's going to drag it down. Florida State and Clemson, they said it's time to move out before the house gets foreclosed on. Let's go. Let's cut our losses and move on, and let's go to a nicer neighborhood. make some more money on our house. Now, back to Phillips. While he's been critical of Florida State and Clemson, and he's upset with them for dragging everyone through these lawsuits, he said he's still going to play nice. All right, he's still going to play nice with these schools when it comes to day-to-day operations and the execution of upcoming games and meetings and all that. It's going to be cool. In the courtroom, he's going to be like a pit bull, but everything else, they're still part of the ACC, and they both still have to get along at this point. So he's going to continue to fight against these schools. He said the media grant a rights deal. Again, he reiterated it's been agreed to by all parties and that this deal deserves to be executed. That's the conference's position right now. Now, that's a problem. Like, he's locking in saying, look, we all like this contract yesteryear. We're gonna ride this through to 2036 for another 12 years of making half or 1/3 of what other conferences are making. We're just going to ride it out. That's where the problem is. That's where the big problem is. Again, ACC schools get about $30 million a year from its media rights deal. Each school gets that. While Big Ten and SEC schools get north of $70 million a year per school, and they're quickly growing to $100 million per year per school. Again, ACC schools are stuck in this deal till 2036. If things remain the same for another 12 years, I mean, that's way more than $500 million difference between each school. I'm rounding down, by the way, to keep this simple. Indiana, Purdue, Northwestern, Rutgers are going to make way more than $500 million than Florida State and Clemson over the time of this deal. Or anybody else from the ACC you want to throw in here. Certainly that's not sustainable. So for Jim Phillips to say, look, we're going to execute this deal. We've got another 12 years to go. We're just going to grind it and go. That's not realistic. That's not sustainable. As you can see, the problem here. It's hard to imagine Jim Phillips sitting there with a straight face and saying that the ACC has a good deal. We're going to do it. That's where he runs into a problem. He said, we all agreed to it. Deserves to be executed. They're going to execute themselves if they keep this up till 2036. He also said with a straight face that the additions of Cal, Stanford, and SMU are proof of the conference's health moving forward. Really? We're going to hang our hat on that? It's laughable. Now, the $30 million a year sounds great to those guys. SMU, Cal, Stanford, they've never seen $30 million a year in a media deal. Cal and Stanford in the Pac-12 never got near that. They think this is great. They got like extra money now. It's more than they've ever seen. But this is exactly why FSU and Clemson, they got visions of earning $100 million a year in their heads elsewhere in the Big Ten, for example. We still think Florida State and Clemson's path to the Big Ten is through a settlement, maybe this summer, possibly. But if you listen to ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips, this may be dragging out a little bit longer. He's going to keep fighting. So unless these are the last gasp fighting words of a desperate man who's about to lose a fight, and the conference's livelihood and his livelihood are about to fall apart, he's going to keep fighting, at least as long as he can. I still think a settlement comes. I still think those schools bolt, and I think there's a good chance at least one of them end up in the Big Ten, maybe more. All right. Get your thoughts on that. As always like to hear from you. Don't forget, you can hit us up on Twitter at X at TalkBig10 Don't forget our website, TalkBig10 10.com. All of our podcasts go there. Plus, you can get ready for the upcoming 2024 season by getting the latest swag, shirts, hats, T-shirts from your favorite school right at our website, TalkBig10 10.com. So check that out. All right. Now, I'd also ask you to subscribe if you can. It's free. It takes 1 second to just click and no other information is required. And then you and me, we're in the same club, talking Big Ten forever. You can follow Locked On Big Ten for free wherever you get your podcasts, even if you're audio only. Enjoy you to share and like and follow. And that way you'll get the latest episode of this podcast as soon as it becomes available each and every day. And also, we have some major recruiting news from Penn State. They may have their quarterback of the future beyond Drew Aller. Rutgers continues to impress everybody under the sun. Michigan, maybe a sigh of relief on a couple. And Nebraska, they keep plugging along too. That is all coming up. Plus, then we'll take a look ahead to the weekend in our Big Ten Classics. It's all on the way right here on Locked On Big Ten. Game Time. Game Time will help you go to games, especially it's summertime. You want to go to a Major League Baseball game? Get the Game Time app, download it on your phone. Tickets right there. And by the way, it's not just sports, comedy, concerts, theater, anything you got going on in the neighborhood, you can get the tickets from Game Time. It's easy, it's fast, but they are an authorized ticket marketplace agent of Major League Baseball. That makes getting tickets faster and easier. They've got great deals. Sometimes the closer you get to first pitch, the better the deals are with that at Game Time. Plus, you can see the view from the seat of the ticket you're about to buy right there on your phone. Oh, that looks good. Unobstructed view. Boom. Buy the ticket. Last minute deal. Save up to 60% off buying last minute tickets for sports, the concerts, comedy, theater. It's all right there. Take the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and the redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Want to thank you for making Locked On Big Ten your first listen each and every day, especially you everydayers out there. Thank you very much. Spread the word. Tell your friends about us. That's how we grow. Meanwhile, be sure to subscribe on YouTube, share, follow, and like Locked On Big Ten, your team every day. And once again, don't forget to go to our website, talkbig10.com. All of our podcasts are there, and then you can buy your favorite team shirts, hats, and merchandise there as well. talkbig10.com. Let's talk some recruiting, shall we? While Penn State eagerly awaits the 2024 season and whether highly touted quarterback Drew Aller steps up and lives up to expectations for him, James Franklin received a commit from four-star class of 2026 quarterback named Troy Hune. And this is pretty big news there at Penn State. He's from the hotbed of quarterbacks there in Mission Hills, California. He had 24 offers from other schools, but he said he sees himself thriving in that environment in Happy Valley. He also said that while all the other schools were seeking his services, Penn State was the most consistent. They were locked into him and with him every step of the way. And he liked that. And he noticed it. And he also praised Penn State quarterback coach Danny O'Brien, who's only 33 years old, a little younger, can relate to the kids a little bit more. And one of the reasons that Hune announced so early is that he wants to be a leader of the 2026 class, like be one of the first guys in, and then he wants to help recruit more guys for that class. That's pretty cool. The news hasn't been all good for Penn State, as we mentioned in yesterday's podcast. By the way, they've been going all in on a lot of high-profile guys, and so are other schools. So you win some, you lose some. But that statement seemed to apply to the Nittany Lions more than anybody that we've been talking about here this summer. We mentioned a few days ago how they lost running back commit Alvin Henderson to Auburn, for example. He flipped. He committed to Penn State, but then flipped to Auburn. But, he's from the state of Alabama, and he wanted to stay close to home. Now, four-star linebacker DJ McClary is doing the same thing to the Nittany Lions. He's flipping from his commit to Penn State, and he wants to remain home in New Jersey, and he's going to go play for Greg Schiano at Rutgers. Now, we've talked about this before. Rutgers is unbelievable this year. Greg Schiano, because this player, McClary, is going to flip from Penn State to Rutgers. Rutgers now has 5 four-star recruits in its top 10 class. The class of 2025 at Rutgers, top 10 recruiting class in the country at Rutgers. Doing great out there. By the way, Penn State's class is ranked 11th right now, so pretty good by them as well. Just kind of give you an idea how Rutgers is doing, comparatively speaking. Let's update you on a couple of Michigan commits on the defensive line. Nate Marshall and Bobby Kanka, who we talked about last week, by the way. They took visits to other schools, and so people in Michigan were kind of holding their breath a little bit. Good news, though. They've both recommitted to the Wolverines. Marshall was talking to Auburn. Things kind of looked a little 50-50 there for a while, but he posted on social media, I'm a Michigan man. So he is. Kanka was interesting in that when we discussed him last week, he was a big story because after having committed to Michigan, he was talking a lot to Michigan State. And, of course, the big rivalry, the in-state, the whole thing there. But the Spartans, that would have been a big feather in their cap had they been able to pull him from Michigan. But it appears, and by the way, Tennessee got involved here at the last second as well for his services. But a weekend visit to Ann Arbor smoothed everything over, and Kanka doubled down on his commitment to Michigan. By all accounts, Matt Rule and Nebraska have been doing a great job this offseason. Now they have their sights on 4-star linebacker Dawson Merritt from Kansas. However, it looked like they might get a shot at this kid. He's down to 2 schools, and it's Alabama and Nebraska. And word is now all of a sudden he's leaning toward Alabama, but the announcement is still kind of pending. So people are holding their breath that maybe he's going to surprise everybody, go to Nebraska. But right now, the thinking is he is going to go to Alabama. He only took 2 official visits. He visited Lincoln and Tuscaloosa, and that's it. So there you have it on the recruiting beat here in the middle of the week. By the way, if you watch a lot of daytime TV, sports TV, talking head TV, Fox Sports, ESPN, FS1, where they're all talking over each other, yelling and loud, and I don't know how much real information you get there. Nevertheless, I have another idea for you. Free 24/7 sports streaming on Locked On Sports Today. It's our brethren channel from Locked On. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It's super hot outside. You might as well stay inside in the air condition and watch a little TV. Coming up, we've got what the Big Ten Network has. They got some great classics coming up this weekend. A lot of Rose Bowls, a lot of them. Maybe your favorite team made one, and this will air over the weekend. All that coming up in a minute right here. Big Ten Classics on Locked On Big Ten. It's time to get you ready for the weekend here on Locked On Big Ten with what's going on the Big Ten Network. Again, we are not necessarily affiliated with the Big Ten Network, but we keep an eye on the programming because we like to talk about some of the same things. So I'm going to put this on screen. A lot of you check this podcast on audio only, Apple, wherever you get your favorite apps. So for those that aren't on video, I'll go ahead and mention in as much detail as I can as I put this on screen, all the Big Ten Classics and other stuff coming up here this weekend. We'll pick it up at Friday, June 28th, 5:30 p.m. All these times are Eastern. We've got Big Ten men's gymnastics, the Big Ten championships. You can catch that at 5:30. And then Saturday, we just start rolling with Rose Bowls. This is going to be kind of fun. Again, a great excuse to get out from the heat, get in the air condition, turn on the big widescreen TV and kick back and relive some of your favorite memories of your favorite teams. We'll start it off at 11:30 on Saturday Eastern time. Wisconsin Football Classic, their Rose Bowl, Wisconsin versus UCLA from January 1st, 1999. Badgers overcoming the Bruins at a thrilling Rose Bowl behind Heisman Trophy winner Ron Dane, who that season rushed all over everybody and did so in this game too. 246 yards and 4 touchdowns right before he was drafted into the NFL. At 12:30, we have a Michigan State Football Classic, their Rose Bowl versus Stanford in January of 2014. Connor Cook passing for 332 yards, a couple touchdowns, leading the Spartans to a victory over 5th-ranked Stanford in the 100th Rose Bowl. That's at 12:30. Check that out Saturday. 2:30. We have an Ohio State Football Classic, their Rose Bowl against Utah. This is from January 2022. This was a shootout. This thing looked like it was a wrap. Then it wasn't. Then it was crazy. C.J. Stroud passing for 573 yards and 6 touchdowns to help lead the 6th-ranked Buckeyes to a 48-45 comeback win over the 11th-ranked Utes in the Rose Bowl. I must admit, I'm a little embarrassed to say I had stepped away from that game for a bit, and then everything got crazy, and I'm like, oh, It was like, what did I miss? See, I can go back and watch this now. What did I miss? Greatest Rose Bowl of all time. At 3:30, a Penn State football classic, Rose Bowl, Penn State versus Oregon in 1995. Kajana Carter rushing for 156 yards and 3 touchdowns, including an 83-yarder on the first play to push the second-ranked Nittany Lions past the 12th-ranked Ducks 38-20 to complete their undefeated season. Who would have thought back then in 1995 that Penn State and Oregon would just be a Big Ten game someday? Get ready. 4:30 Eastern time. We've got another Rose Bowl, an Ohio State football classic. Their Rose Bowl in 1997 against Arizona State. January 1st, 97. Joe Germain found David Boston the 5-yard game-winning touchdown with 19 seconds to go. And the 4th-ranked Buckeyes defeated the 2nd-ranked Sun Devils 20-17, marking one of the best finishes in Rose Bowl history. Still plenty more on your Saturday. At 6:30, Michigan and their football classic, Rose Bowl, Michigan versus Washington State, January 1, 1998. This had Brian Greasy at quarterback, throwing for 251 yards and 3 touchdowns. In the top-ranked Wolverines' 21-16 victory over the 7th-ranked Cougars to claim the national title and finish their season undefeated. All right, there's more. We're going to change the page here on video. We'll move to 8:30 Saturday night. Penn State and their football classic, Rose Bowl, Penn State versus Utah. And that was a year ago, January 2nd, 2023. And, of course, then at 9:30, a Wisconsin football classic, Wisconsin versus Stanford. This is January 1st of 2000. Ron Dane, 200 yards, and pushing past 7,000 career yards to help the 4th-ranked Badgers defeat the 22nd-ranked Cardinal 17-9 in Pasadena. So there you have that. And at 10:30, another Wisconsin Rose Bowl classic versus UCLA from 1994. Big Ten Player of the Year, Brent Moss, running for 158 yards and 2 touchdowns as the Badgers defense forced 6 turnovers in their 21-16 victory over the Bruins. All right, let's flip it to Sunday. We got 3 more here for you. Now, this is a little different. This is Big Ten football at 60 at 2 o'clock Eastern. This is just edit after edit after edit, highlight after highlight after snap after snap. Michigan and Penn State from 2023. Blake Corum, 145 yards and 2 touchdowns to help lead the 3rd-ranked at the time Wolverines to a 24-15 victory over a 10th-ranked Penn State. Of course, this was a game Jim Harbaugh was suspended. This was the game that J.J. McCarthy was a little dinged up. Nobody really knew it at the time. This is the game where Michigan ran the ball 32 straight times and didn't throw a single pass in the second half and still won the game. At 8:30, a Michigan football classic, Ohio State versus Michigan from 2023 last year. Blake Corum again, 88 yards, 2 touchdowns, 30-24, the final score over the 2nd-ranked Buckeyes in that one. That was where Kyle McCord had the interception. Threw the interception in the 4th quarter. And at 9:30, a Michigan football classic, the Big Ten championship game versus Iowa in early December. Blake Corum with a couple touchdowns. The Wolverines were ranked 2nd in the country at that time and beat the 16th-ranked Hawkeyes to earn the Big Ten title in Indianapolis. So there you have it. It is a full slate of some great, interesting stuff, Big Ten classics and some highlight shows into the weekend as you can get out of the heat from the summertime and enjoy yourself, reliving some great memories of Big Ten athletics there. In the meantime, many ways for you to reach out here to this podcast. There's Twitter or X at Talk Big Ten, number 10. Don't forget, you see the scroll on the bottom. Go to our website, Talk Big Ten, number 10, talkbig10.com. All of our podcasts are there in order or grouped by your favorite school. And while you're there, get some new attire for the upcoming 2024 football season. Buy some shirts or hats or T-shirts or pennants or coffee mugs from your favorite team. Getting ready for the college football season coming up right there at your fingertips at our website, talkbig10, number 10.com. And also, we always welcome your comments on YouTube as well. Before you go, subscribe and follow this podcast right now on your favorite podcast app, and you get the latest episode of Locked On Big Ten as soon as it becomes available each and every day. While you're perusing around on the website, click on a couple more podcasts. Check them out. Get more familiar. If you're new, if you're not, tell your friends about us. I know you know somebody in your family or a friend that's a Big Ten alum or fan. Let them know we're out here. And when you're done with us, check out our friends at Locked On Sports Today, here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day. Locked On Sports Today on YouTube. You can subscribe there as well. The first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. That'll do it. It was a big day. Thank you for joining us. I always enjoy it, but I can't wait till we meet again tomorrow. I'm Craig Schiman for Locked On Big Ten. See you then.